All right, let's get to our conversation. Now, I'm going to read from a Daily Graphic article. The date here, 10th of November, 2023. It says the headline is... headline not showing up, but the Ministry of Finance has approved the disbursement of over 4 million Ghana cedis to settle the debt of the Korle-Bu Teaching Hospital Renal Unit outpatient department to enable the unit to function continuously. The Minister of Health, Kwame Sarpong Asiedu, who was answering an urgent question in Parliament, said in order to forestall the recurrence of the situation which led to the closure of the unit, the ministry, in collaboration with Korle-Bu Teaching Hospital and the Ministry of Finance, was considering the possible inclusion of dialysis treatment in the National Health Insurance Scheme. Also, the collaboration will consider granting subsidies based on proposals received and so forth. Okay. The minister's appearance followed a directive by the second deputy speaker, Siamo Amwakun, for him to brief the House on the reasons for the closure of the unit and the increase in kidney-related problems in Ghana. Okay. The minister said the unit attended... Oh, no, this is not... so, basically, in this answering of questions in Parliament, Mr. Agyemang actually informed the people of Ghana that the Finance Ministry has approved payment of that 4 million cedi debt. Today is January 18. The debt has not been paid. Kwame Sarpong Asiedu joins us. And of course, he is a fellow at CDD and a pharmacist. Kwame, good morning to you.
And good morning to Winston and Raymond and to the listeners as well.
Now, we all saw your Facebook post, bemoaning the situation that the bill hadn't been paid. How did you find out about this?
Well, yes, we have sources. I mean, sometimes politicians think that when stories break, a new story breaks and a new story breaks. I mean, we've become so inundated with scandals and stories that you easily forget about what's happening with the past. So I checked my sources. I mean, some of them even in Parliament. And yesterday, I actually heard Honorable Daffy Amato state that the money hadn't been paid. He was speaking to Randy Abbey, and he stated that it hadn't been paid. So I went back to check again, and to my amazement, I found out I hadn't been paid. And for me, it sent a chill down my spine when I found out, because it came across as though some people had become, and I'll not mince my words, liars. And I'll explain why. If you remember, there was a thought leadership event held by Multimedia, at which the presidential advisor on health stated that that money was going to be paid. I was on there as one of the resource people, and I said, looking at the fiscal space in the health budget, it was unlikely that unless they told us where the money was going to come from, that money was going to be paid. In fact, he took exception to my position. And I said on the program, and it's recorded so people can go and watch, I said, I never want to be a prophet of doom, but I'm someone who plays with numbers. So when I look at the numbers and you tell me something and it doesn't sit within the body of the numbers, I will challenge you until you show me exactly where that number is going to sit, because anything underpinning health is money, and finance can never be done out of vacuum. It has to be done from a specific line. Winston and Co, who are numbers people, will tell you that when it comes to money, there has to be a specific line item for it, and there was none. So I then went back and I said, I heard the Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance also say, in fact, it was a Friday, he said by the Sunday or Monday it was going to be paid. It never happened. Then we had the Minister of Health, who is an accountant, who knows that this has to have an item line, go into Parliament, like you've just read, tell us that the Minister of Finance had approved that the monies get paid, and that other things were going to happen, like this was going to be put on the NHIS, and it didn't happen. And Parliament is a house of records. So I then started asking myself, if Honorable Daffy Amato is saying, and I checked with other parliamentarians, and they are all saying that the money hasn't been paid, Then why is Parliament not hauling this minister back to say, you told us that this money has been paid? We find out it hasn't been paid. So what the hell is going on here? You see, and we forget that these are human lives. These are human lives. These are not numbers on or pawns on the chessboard that are being pushed around. They are human beings. And from September, in fact, this unit closed in July. From September, we've been having these conversations about 4 million cities. Don't get me wrong, 4 million cities. And now the unit is operating at the benevolence of Blue Sky. Why should that happen? What sort of country are we running?
Now, obviously, the unit hasn't shut down. Like you said, it's running on the benevolence of people. But what is the effect, the long-term effect of this debt not being paid?
You see, Kojo, I'm going to paint a picture. Yesterday, I listened to Uncle Echikwa talk about the situation he finds himself in. And at that time, I was looking at these numbers again. And this is the picture I'm going to paint. You are a retiree. You've worked very hard. And while you're working, you try to put your resources into schemes and instruments that will protect you during your retirement. So you bought financial instruments with EcoBank, with DataBank. You bought government bonds. You bought cocoa bonds, hoping that these would protect you. They pay your medical bills. Now you are retired and you have chronic renal failure. You have to be on dialysis. The cocoa bond is not paying you. The government is running you around like a rabbit. DataBank is not showing up. EcoBank is not showing up. The government that's supposed to protect you, the Securities and Exchange Commission, is silent. The government that is supposed to protect you is mute. What is that to you? Isn't that a government acting extrajudicially to kill you without telling you? So this is the effect, because Kojo, what tends to happen is that you realize that Korle-Bu provides a subsidized dialysis scheme. A lot of these people would have to go to the private sector to get dialysis. When we last did the Thought Leadership Program, we realized that at a minimum, using the Korle-Bu numbers, you needed about 85,000 Ghana cedis a year just to stay alive. That was using the Korle-Bu numbers. When we computed it, and that didn't include other things. It was just that you're on dialysis, you were not using anything, you didn't have any chronic disease. Now, that 85,000 is going to go to about 140, 150,000. How do you want these people to survive? Someone tell us.
Right. So let me. Obviously, somebody has stepped in and is paying the bills, which has taken the pressure off government. And surprise, surprise, they have not yet fulfilled their promise. What should we do to make this government take this problem seriously?
Kojo, you know what? I've come to the conclusion that this government is tired. The government is just tired. You can clearly see, if this is not a government that is tired, they wouldn't do some of the things we find them doing. So if you ask me what we expect them to do, the question I ask you is, what haven't we done? As a media house, what haven't you done? You've highlighted this problem. You've held thought leadership. You've brought all the stakeholders to the table. The government is still not showing through. What else can be done? And while these are going on, there are other problems springing up. If I tell you I know what can be done, apart from the government becoming humane and paying up, I just don't know. And that's my honest feeling. And that's a feeling of despondency, because I just don't know what we can do to force the hand of this government anymore.
Right. Well, Kwame, Thank you very much for sharing the information you've received, and we'll certainly also be looking into this to find out exactly what the situation is. But until then, thank you for your time. Kwame Sarpong Asiedu is a Democracy and Development Fellow on Public Health at CDD. He's also a pharmacist.
You see, Kujo, I've been listening to Kwame, and we've all been talking about this. You ask yourself a very simple question. Do our leaders care? Do they care? That's all I ask myself. So today is First Sky. When they did their Thanksgiving, about 32 million Ghana cedis.
Yeah.
This is First Sky coming to the aid of Korle-Bu Teaching Hospital, the renal unit. And in the Republic of Ghana, we said we're going to make payment. Approval has been given. My little understanding of accounting is that if you allocate funds, let's say there's an emergency, and you give approval, when you give approval based on the pressing need surrounding this, disbursements are made and payments are made. Now, at what point in time was the approval given? And is the approval an indication that because maybe this was not part of our plan, we now decided to make allocations to it and then went back to sleep hoping that we would pay later? If you have an emergency, you have a contingency fund that should be able to take care of it. If you have an emergency, you can always engage in environment of other expenditure to make provision for this. We're talking about the lives of people.
I said earlier that their lives, we don't value it in this republic. We pretend. We go to church, pray, and pray for other people too. We attend birthday parties of people and wish them long life and all the other. We do wishes here all the time. But when it comes to the things that we need to do to safeguard the life of our people, we don't really value that much. And it shows in most of our decisions. We did chronicle that when the place was not functioning, human beings died. We did say that here, numbers mentioned up to 17 or 19. And these are family members of people. People have to bury them, do funerals and move on with their lives and try to move on. But the only mistake they made was that they were Ghanaians. That's the mistake. A mistake they didn't contribute to because most of us did not choose to be Ghanaians, right? We were born here. We found ourselves here, so we exist in this part of the world. The difficulty is that being Ghanaian is become very, very painful.
Ray, I want us to hear from the horse's own mouth. Let's find out what's happening at Korle-Bu. We're joined by its CEO, Dr. Opoku Ampomah. Doc, good morning to you. Hi, do we have Dr. Opoku Ampomah on the line? Right, okay, we're working to connect to him just so that we can get the reality of the situation from him. But Ray, you were saying?
Yes, so it's just the reality we find ourselves in this republic. The people you speak to will not listen. They will not fix it. They will make promises just to make sure that the news cycle forgets that this is still an issue in the Republic of Ghana. And people on the daily will have to face these difficulties. It is part and become part of our existence as a people. Whether we are collectively interested in rooting it out and getting to the bottom of it, I doubt that very much. I think that unless people are in very precarious situations, they do not care what is happening to their compatriots at this end. Because this matter, who else were we expected to talk to about it? We called out the president. We called out the ministers involved. We called out the authorities at Korle-Bu. Basically, everybody who has one responsibility or the other. We even leveled every single allegation at the doorstep of the finance ministry, with the hope that their conscience will be pricked one way or the other. And maybe if they are forgotten, memories will be jogged so that they can come to the reality that Ghanaians are dying from their negligence. But promise after promise, nothing happened. Nothing happened because we were here in this country when a minister's wife died at a hospital in Canton. What happened? We promised immediately we were going to build a new one.
Yeah.
We started construction. Yes, we didn't joke with it. All of a sudden, the issue of maternal mortality became a national big issue, or an issue that we needed to take serious. And that hospital we knew was in a terrible state. It's become like our governance is reserved for a few who are supposed to be the ones in charge of it. When it suits them, we get things done. When it doesn't suit them, nothing gets done. The ordinary people of this country consistently do not get the dividends they are supposed to reap from the same democracy that we so are proud of. I thought we agreed that things like health and education, that one, we isolate them, we deal with them. Even during serious IMF programs, they make sure that those ones are isolated. It's because it's at the core of our being. You don't know what tomorrow will happen to your kidneys. Kidneys you don't see and we don't check its status consistently.
Exactly.
So that is why I cannot see what else should be said to Kwakwaj Mamenu, friends, the Kenuferatas of this world, to just make sure that the 4 million is paid. We are not asking you to build new hospitals. I personally have no regard for agenda, whatever one. But we are asking you to do the basic things you have to do to make sure that the system exists the way it should be. So, I mean, I'm not sure what else is required. I'm not sure what else should be said. Except that I get your point. Maybe duty bearers are not angry enough. If Parliament had insisted consistently on a review that we want you coming back here every 2 weeks to give us an update on this, perhaps you'll have gotten something useful from this.
All right, I think we've connected to Dr. Opoku Ampomah now. He's the CEO of Korle-Bu Teaching Hospital. Dr. Ampomah, good morning to you.
Yeah, hello, good morning.
Thank you for making the time. Obviously, we're very curious. We want to know the situation. So, can you confirm for us whether or not this 4 million CD debt has been paid?
Yeah, so good morning to your fellow listeners, the partners and listeners. Yes, so I can confirm that at the day that the minister made the statement in Parliament, a letter was issued, one that was issued which authorized the release of the 4 million cedis. And so this 4 million cedis was released to the Ministry of Health and has been credited to Korle-Bu Teaching Hospital. So this was done last year. So,
Doc, can I ask you to reposition yourself? The line is not very clear. Can I ask you to reposition yourself just so we get a better connection? You were explaining that a letter was written.
I'm saying that the warrant was authorized for the money to be credited to us was done last year. I think it was on the November or so.
Okay.
Of the document, I can finish with all the details later on. But then this has been credited to us after last year.
Right.
And so I'm saying that the analysts, I know that everybody is concerned about this issue, and we all want to look at long-term measures to do with the matter because it's some doubts of national concern. But I think that the discussion is not helped if we also put out erroneous information that seems to give the impression that some people are nudging on their responsibility or are callous or are insensitive because it helps the discussion. Because this money was released as of last year.
So to clarify, Korle-Bu has received the money?
Yes, the money has been credited to us, yes.
And have you used it to pay off the debt?
Yes, so that's what is we are working on now. We are working on firm guarantees to get the outstanding equipment and consumables shipped in to the unit.
Okay, so the finance ministry has given you the money, but you haven't paid the debt because you are negotiating with the creditors for the next supply?
Yeah, exactly right. Because you realize that we were talking about some of the contractual issues. Whilst we're having the discussion, we talk about some of the contractual issues. And we thought that we're looking at the contract and what has transpired so far, we also think that we can get better terms. And we're also looking at other options because this is a closed system. So we're also looking at other options to make, to bring down the cost of dialysis even further. So that is being explored at the moment.
So while
but the unit is running.
Right. While you're exploring this, do you have enough supplies for your patients?
Yes, at the moment we are working. So we at the moment we have supplies for now, and we are working on imminently bringing in further supplies to beef up what we have.
Right. So how long will you be able to provide supplies before you need your creditors to step back in?
And I have to double check on that. But what I'm saying that we have supplies for now, but we are working on bringing in the rest of the supplies in as soon as possible. We also know that because of some of the shipping issues that have happened, so we are trying to negotiate quickly to get the rest of the consumables in. That's why we are also exploring the other system, so that we don't rely on only one system, so that if one supply chain has an issue, we are not left without supply. So that's why we are also opening up and looking at other options. So we've also engaged with other stakeholders and other donors to bring in machines of a different make, so that those ones have an open system which can use consumables from other brands, so that we are not kind of tied to one particular line of supply.
Well, that sounds like a medium to long-term plan, but
this is immediate. We are looking at it immediately.
Oh, so do you have money to do that?
Yes, we've got some firm commitments on that, and so we are working on that immediately.
Commitments from who?
For some of the donors who would like to remain private, so I'm not at liberty to put out their names.
Right.
But one of them is in the oil, and gas field.
Right. So for those you owe, I mean, the money has come to you, but you're working on negotiating some terms for the next supply. Are you not worried that this puts your patients in some jeopardy? Because, you can't actually tell me in this phone call how long the supplies you have will last. So there's a possibility they will run out.
To give you a specific fact, I'm saying that I had to come in because of the information that was being put out. I have to double check on that. I can give you that information. But I'm saying we're not going to sit down and let our supplies run out. You know that.
Right. And you also promised that you would give us some documents to confirm the receipt of the 4 million.
Yes, those documents are not for, but if you want to see, we have documentary proof, all the giving numbers and everything, the releases, it's all available.
Wonderful.
That's why I was expecting that at least some level of costing should have been done with the institution before anybody comes out and makes definite pronouncement on air.
Okay, Dr. Opoku Ampomah, quick questions. So, you're saying that this money was credited to your account. When was it credited to your account?
It was around November last year.
November last year.
Yes.
And at the time it was credited to your account, what did you tell your suppliers by way of paying them?
Suppliers are already aware that we have funds to pay.
And you have still not released it to them? Please, I can't hear you.
We are now shitting a book. Until the total contractor issue that we want firm guarantees to make sure that we do not send money out there and then do not end up not receiving what we expect to receive. So that's why we want firm guarantees before we release money. Because we also want to make sure that we are getting value for what then. So that is what there's been proposals back and forth. So we are
Please, let me understand something, Dr. Opoku Ampomah, and if you could kindly reposition yourself. So let me understand something. You owe these suppliers 4 million, maybe more, but in the past, at the time we were having a conversation, it was 4 million. You have the money, and you're going into what kind of discussions?
I think you are trying to have another discussion.
No. I'm just trying to understand something.
There's background to this issue, and so if you want to, then you need to come in and let's have a meaningful conversation about it. Your issue this morning was that the money has not been released to Korle-Bu Teaching Hostel, and I'm telling you that the money has been released. That was your issue this morning.
Yeah, but my question.
So if you want to understand the background of the nuances and the details of this issue, I think we need to have another. This is where we can have time to discuss, so that you better be able to appreciate what is going on.
So I have a bit of time and I want to appreciate something.
Yes, but I don't. I'm sorry.
But just a minute. That you have the money. I want to understand the discussions you're having with the suppliers, because you're telling us you're having.
That's something that you need to, because we furnished payment was there, because it has to do with the contractual agreements, and also has to do with firm commitment, because we have been times in the past where funds are released and the supplier has to renege. So this discussion last year, we put that there were also some contracts we sorted out. And so that once payments is received, what is good and what is clear guarantees. So that is what they are it's being finalized.
Sorry, Dr. Ampomah, the line is not great. I think the signal is not good. So we keep hearing every other word that you're saying. So what we're asking is if you can explain to us exactly what you're discussing. Oh, it seems we've lost Dr. Opoku Ampomah. Let's see if we can reconnect.
Yes, let's see.
Because we do need to understand the nature of this negotiation that has delayed the payment. Because as far as we understand it, you owe someone money.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that gives you leverage for a negotiation. You owe money. You have to pay it. The longer you don't pay it, the more you owe. So,
and I heard something like, sometimes in the past we are paid and they are reneged on supply.
yes. So we wanted to understand.
But how's that connected to the debt?
So when you owe somebody,
Yes.
and your debt is due,
Yeah.
and the person cuts supply to you, when you get that money, you make payments. If you don't make payment, I mean, if you owe me, you cannot tell me that I have gotten money and I am now going into another batch of discussions with you on the next supplies. You haven't paid me.
So what has been clarified as we speak is that
The debt
at
is
least,
owed.
yes, they have not been paid.
The debt has not been paid.
Yes.
Yeah.
What the Korle-Bu CEO sought to clarify is that, well, we have received the money, but we
From
have
the
not
finance
paid.
ministry,
Yes. So the money has transited from the finance ministry or wherever it's supposed to come from, but we have not made the final payment to the people who are supposed to be paid the amount of money.
Yes.
It is that clarification of a negotiation that's unclear, but that's, I think, what I hear him saying.
Yes.
Except my difficulty is that it sounded like this was an emergency, something that ought to be clear before that institution was going to function the way it ought to function. I hope you get my point.
In fact, it was Dr. Opoku Ampomah who made the nation aware of this debt when we had that thought leadership event here at Joy. He made the nation aware of this debt and explained that this debt is the reason why the center had to be shut down. He also talked about how for every continued day that the center runs, that amount increases.
That's true.
So he made us understand the importance, the seriousness of the need to pay this debt. And as a nation, we all channeled our outrage and pressure onto government to release this money. Dr. Opoku Ampomah says the money was released
In November.
But the people who are owed have still not been paid. That is what we need Dr. Ampomah to completely clarify for us. At a point he was saying that we need to have that conversation another time, but I think it's all the same conversation.
Could you have a lot of things to say?
So there's an arrangement that the people no longer, so they are holding on to the debt now.
Yes.
They are no longer in a hurry.
The same debt that resulted in non-supply of
Yes.
consumables.
So
Is what you're holding on now to negotiate better terms or what?
I mean, maybe we need clarification.
No.
Maybe
you
we
see-
need a better appreciation of, because it sounds a bit more, it sounds convoluted. That's if I can choose that word.
I mean, look, if we're doing
because
this,
in the simplest of terms,
if we're doing this in a classroom, I'd have passed a certain verdict, which I won't pass on radio. But if you ask me, let me be very honest, I don't understand what's happening.
me
here.
too.
So far, what he has explained is that indeed the debt has not been paid. money has been released to Korle-Bu, according to him, from the finance ministry to pay this amount. The 4 million cedis has been released to Korle-Bu, according to him. But Korle-Bu is engaging in some manner of negotiation with the supplier before the debt is paid. So that was the last thing he said to us, and we were seeking to understand exactly what that must mean.
Kojo, yes, so a few things would come to mind. Is it the case that the supplier has certain supplies outstanding? If they have certain supplies outstanding, then you can say, Raymond, bring those supplies and come for your money.
Mm-hmm.
If it supplies you consumables and machines, and probably hasn't supplied certain machines, which by virtue of your signing of a contract deems the transaction to have occurred, and thus expects payment, you can also then make the point and say, okay, so we actually said that at your supply of this, it's all based on the contract that you signed. Based on your supply, we will make payment within these number of days, weeks, or months. So you will look at your contract. If you have to make payments, you make payments based on what has been supplied or what has been agreed. If he was supposed to supply you anything and did not supply you, then based on the contracts that you signed, you can actually go back and say, because you didn't supply this, we are not going to make payment for it. Because mind you, the transaction, because of the kind of accounting we do here, is deemed to have happened once you agree. The supply is expected to be made, and you are expected to make payments. If the supply hasn't been made, and there is no, expectation of the supply being made, you don't make payment. So is it the case then that they are trying to reconcile, and that should be the term, reconcile the debt owed based on the supplies made? Then that's okay. But that's not what you get clearly from Dr. Opoku Ampomah's. I get a guarantee of supplies and all, and which, to be very honest with you, I don't understand.
And we are coming from a certain premise for people who do not understand.
Yeah.
For some months, the people stopped supplying because they had not been paid. That's what we made know, right? Everybody in this country understood that perfectly, never disputed. They stopped supplying because there was an outstanding 4 million debt. And that's why we kept saying in this country that we can't let people die because of 4 million. And that life is more important than the 4 million debt we are talking about. I hope you get that.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be surprising that there are questions as to why, if we are to believe indeed that, and in fact, that this 4 million has been paid or transferred from government to Korle-Bu. If we are to believe that particular premise, it will stand to reason that the question will be, then have we made due our commitments to the people? The understanding we have is that the people have perhaps restituted or continued the supply. That's the impression we are being given today, right? That they are continuing with the supply, but we have not paid them, and we've gone into some form of negotiation. That is what makes all of this murky. And sometimes, murky may not be the right word, but that makes it difficult for some of us to appreciate. So that's why the clarity was required from Dr. Opoku Ampomah's end. But we are in the Republic of Ghana. And we have sufficient experience to sometimes surmise why these things happen.
We are still...
And we are not even concluding now. We are not making any conclusion. You just let's pretend that. Let's ask the proverbial ostrich and pretend that we don't know what happens in this republic.
We are still
We do not want to be told tomorrow morning that, this thing resurfaced because of this and that, or perhaps the payment did not happen in the first place, or the payment was not transferred in the first place. We cannot be told that story again. And that's why all of these is required, because at the end of the day, it's the lives of the people in this republic we are talking about.
We are still working hard to reconnect with Dr. Opoku Ampomah, because I cannot stress enough how important it is for him to help us understand the situation. I mean, it's unfortunate, but the record, the history of this particular matter is not good.
Mm-hmm.
It was not very straightforward.
A lot of promise to
You
pay.
will remember that originally when this matter was brought up by the young lady during the
Protest.
Occupy Jilobi protest. The response from Korle-Bu when a poster showing increased prices, over 100% price increase, when it came out, the response from Korle-Bu, in fact from their CEO, was that the prices have not been increased.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, I think we all know that that poster could not have been put up there without any authority being aware of it. But we were made to believe that it was done on the blind side of the authorities. Then later, it was even brought up that this is something that should actually have gone to Parliament. So you know that the lack of clarity in this narrative, has been there from the beginning. So this is not the time to leave anything ambiguous. This is the time to make everything clear for us to understand. Why is it that the money has been given to you to pay this debt? The debt that you told us all that it is important, it is urgent that this debt be paid so that this unit can be reopened. Now the unit has been reopened. People are donating money for it to stay open. And you are holding on to the money that you owe the supplier. This was a money problem. Pay the money and get the supplies. Now you have the money, but you haven't paid it. You need to help us understand why. Now you are telling us that you are looking for other machines that will use other brands of consumables so that you don't have to rely on this supplier. So is that what it is? Are you trying to put pressure on a supplier so that you remove them from the chain and replace them?
Kojo.
Is that what is happening? But if that's what is happening, then why did you make us all get so agitated and put so much pressure on the government to release money
Kojo,
when you are not ready to pay it?
last year the conversation was about, we owed
Yeah.
for supplies not paid for.
Yeah. So that's it's
So
a debt.
I mean that's not in doubt. These are supplies we haven't paid for. So at this point, if monies have been released and credited to the account, why has the supplier not been paid? Is it the case that there was something else and we were deceived that it was supplies of consumables? Because if you owe somebody, it's very simple.
But that challenges the foundation of the entire conversation
And that is why
about this 4 million debt,
Yes, and
its
that's-
origination, and why we needed to get it paid.
Raymond.
At a point where we contemplate it, why don't we raise funds and go and get it cleared?
Yes, in fact, people actually called us that we
Yeah.
should raise funds here and go and pay 4 million because Ghanaians will be willing to support us with 4 million Ghana cedis. My point is that I want to understand something, which is not really making a lot of sense to me. This is it. And this will be my final comment on this until we get Dr. Opoku Ampomah to come and explain further. Now, did the supplier supply consumables worth 4 million Ghana cedis?
Mm-hmm.
Do you owe them? Has the money been released to you?
Maybe even prior to that, was the shutdown that we talked about, the period that we knew there was massive crisis as that renal unit.
Yeah.
Was it directly as a result of this
Of
particular
these,
debt that we are
consumables,
talking
debts
about?
that you owed? Has the money been released to you? Credited to your account? Have you paid the suppliers? You say you haven't paid them. Why haven't you paid them? Either the money has not been released to you, or either the money is being used for something we need to know. And that's why we need clarity. I'm done.